And along with the air pollution, poaching is another key concern for the UN. And to talk about that, I'm joined by Adam Roberts. He's the CEO for Born Free USA, an animal advocacy group. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Adam, are you optimistic that the UN Environment Assembly is talking about this? Do you think they can help? Do you think they can help shape global policy?
I think because the problems with international wildlife trafficking are so global, you have to have international solutions and international cooperation, and that's really where the United Nations can come in. So I think what you're seeing this week is a significant piece of the puzzle that will hopefully result in a significant number of resolutions that will desire long-term positive influences to stop wildlife trafficking globally.
So what are some realistic solutions?
Well, I think the biggest thing is to make sure you have an unequivocal global prohibition on the trade in certain wildlife products. We know that you have to crack down on tiger poaching by stopping the tiger parts trade, elephant poaching, stopping the ivory trade, rhino poaching by stopping the horn trade. And the more we can get the United Nations and the global political scheme to do this, the better off wildlife will be. But then the second part, which is probably even more important, is making sure that there are significant resources to enforce those types of decisions. So we can't just say there's going to be no ivory trade. We have to make sure there are boots on the ground to protect elephants and apprehend the poachers.
That's right, resources. We have seen various countries step up in their efforts, but which countries do you think are doing the best right now in ending the illegal wildlife trade?
Well, I think what we're seeing right here in America is really important. There's a significant body of work from the Obama administration to try and track down on importation of wildlife products. And then across the states, there's a significant number of state legislative bills that have been introduced to try and do the same. But then overseas, you also have significant efforts in Africa, all across Africa, except in southern Africa, where perhaps the problem is ultimately going to be found. And that's where the focus really has to be. You've got problems with elephant poaching and rhino poaching, but it's starting to go from Central Africa to East Africa and then down in the south. So that's where we have to really focus our long-term efforts.
We have seen some very public displays of the ivory burnings that we're seeing. Why is that particular area having such a hard time?
Well, the thing about the ivory burnings that's so important, and in the United States we've crushed more than 6 tons of ivory, is to send a significant global message that there can be no marketplace for elephant ivory. When you bottom out the market, you stop the poaching because there's no profitability in the product, or if there is, it's very, very small. That's what history shows us anyway. So I think that's why the elephant ivory burns are so important. There was just a huge one in Kenya where this meeting's being held. So it sends a real global message that wildlife should be protected in the wild, and there should be no profitability from wildlife contraband.
Are you encouraged by all this? Are things getting better?
Well, I think we're seeing more attention to wildlife trafficking in the past few years than we have in the past 2 decades, and that gives me great hope. And of course, all of this is going to be leading up to the Convention on International Trade and Endangered Species, the CITES meeting, which is taking place this fall in South Africa, and that's where thousands more people will convene, much like what's happening this week in South Africa, to talk about rhino horn trade and elephant ivory and all of these really important, robust global conservation problems.
And Adam, we just have about 30 seconds left. Talk about global climate change and wildlife. Is there a link there?
There is, and what we know is that there is an inextricable link between what's happening to the environment and what's happening to the wildlife that lives in these various ecosystems. And as long as climate change and other forms of environmental degradation are not tackled, wildlife populations, whether it's polar bears or other species, they're going to suffer. So we really have to have a holistic global approach to these problems.
Okay, Adam Roberts, Born Free USA, thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure.
If you like what you just saw, follow us on social media and visit our website, CCTV-America.com.